If you caught my video from yesterday, you know we are tracking a massive shift in how the industry thinks about memory. The AI trade just split into two completely different paths, and I bet your portfolio is already aligned with one side. We are moving from brute force into precision. But today we need to zoom out. We need to take a step back because we are 3 days away from Microsoft and Google's massive prints that they're about to drop on the street. And the stakes have never been higher. This week, Google dropped blueprints for their TPU-8i, a networking topology called Boardfly. Meanwhile, Microsoft continues to double down on Project Stargate, a $500 billion bet on raw monolithic scale. These are not different chips. These are different versions of the future of intelligence. Microsoft is building a God box. Google is building a neural web. If you own Microsoft, Google, or NVIDIA, you've already picked a side and you may not even know it yet. Today, we're going to look at the $600 billion showdown that determines your portfolio's return on investment for the rest of 2026. Guys, if you haven't done it yet, hit like, hit subscribe to the channel. I appreciate the massive support we've had over the last 3 days. I appreciate all of your commitment and support of the channel overall. But let's dive in. Let's talk about this showdown between Microsoft and Google and how it'll determine our portfolio. Let's start with the king of scale, Microsoft. Their strategy is built all around one word: exclusivity. Microsoft is betting that scale wins, and their architecture is all built around the MIA 200 chip that they launched in January. Let's take a picture because, as you can see, MIA 200 is a beast. It has a 3-NAND process, 216 gigabytes of HBM3, and a massive 2.8 terabytes per second scale up of bandwidth. But the chip isn't the story. The cluster is. Project Stargate is designed to link over 1 million accelerators into a single cohesive unit. Think about it this way. A MIA 200 chip, it's like if you owned a Formula One engine and it was sitting in your garage. It's impressive engineering. It's an awesome engine, but it is completely useless without the car, the track, and the pit crew around it. Stargate is the entire race circuit. Microsoft isn't just selling you the chip. They're selling you the only way, the only track in the world where that engine or that chip can get out and run at full speed. And that's the moat that they are trying to create. And that's why the supply chain around Stargate matters as much as the chip itself. It is exactly why Vertiv Holdings needs to be in this conversation. Every one of those million accelerators generate heat. Cooling that cluster is an engineering problem worth billions. Vertiv is essentially the HVAC contractor for the world's most expensive building moving forward. If you want to train a ChatGPT 5 or a ChatGPT 6, you need a super node. You need enough memory to hold the world's knowledge in one place. Stargate is the ultimate HBM case. Let me show you an example of that. This picture over here, I think, highlights it all. A single Stargate supernode requires roughly 3 times more HBM per accelerator than a standard cloud rack. Multiply that across millions of chips, and we're talking about a demand curve that Micron and SK Hynix have never seen in the history. Guys, we're talking 900,000 DRAM wafers every single month by the time we get to 2029. It's about 40% of the entire world's output of DRAM aligned with Stargate. If you're a long-term investor in both either Micron, SK Hynix, or even Samsung, you are definitely betting and hoping that Stargate wins this battle, and this is the architecture moving forward. Now let's look at the surgical assassin, which is Google. They are working to solve a different problem, not bigger models, but faster responses. And that's why they just unveiled the TPU-8i at their recent Cloud Next 2026 conference. I showed this yesterday in the video, but just as a reminder, this is their 8th generation TPU, and they have a different approach. They have 2 different models, 2 different architectures. They have an 8T for training and an 8i for inference. This is the polar opposite of what Microsoft is doing with Stargate. Instead of building just one giant God box, they're using the Boardfly topology. And you guys may know, if you look at Boardfly, what is different about that is in a traditional 3D torus network, a data packet might take 16 hops before it gets to its destination. If you look in the upper left-hand corner here, you can see with Boardfly, they reduced that to a maximum of 7 hops overall. It flattens it out across the architecture. And as I also mentioned yesterday, the TPU-8i has 384 megabytes of on-chip SRAM. That's 3 times more powerful than the previous generations. So let's make that 16 to 7 hops actually tangible for us on the line or listening to the video, because this number matters significantly for enterprise customers. So imagine you were shipping a package across the city in a traditional 3D tourist network. That package has to stop at 16 different destinations or locations, or different sorting facilities before it reaches its destination. Each stop would add delays, potential complexities, and it actually could add failures, introduce failures at each point. Now imagine a network where the same package makes only 7 stops, and each route is optimized for real time. That's a massive improvement for enterprise customers. And for us as consumers, just scrolling on YouTube or Instagram, the difference isn't visible. But for a world-leading pharmaceutical company running a real-time drug interaction model where an AI agent needs to query, process, and respond in milliseconds, those 9 eliminated hops are the difference between a product that works and one that doesn't. And that's why we saw Merck just sign a $1 billion agreement with Google to take advantage of the Boardfly topology. And that's why this architecture could potentially win in the enterprise inference market. So as an investor, if you believe that the AI is moving towards an agentic efficiency, you pivot to the ASIC architects. You follow Broadcom. Broadcom's role in Boardfly is underappreciated by most retail investors. And I think it is one of the cleanest ways to play this thesis without directly betting on Google. Every new hyperscaler that adopts this topology is another design win for Broadcom's roadmap. That's the kind of infrastructure royalty that doesn't show up in a headline, but it absolutely shows up in a 3-year stock chart. But there's a huge bear case that I want to jump into next on this whole Microsoft versus Google thesis that I'm laying out. The biggest bear case is obviously the capex war. Bears argue that Microsoft and Google, with their combined $331 billion in capex spend in 2026, is just another .com 2.0. Let me show you this picture just to give you the scale of it. You can see on the left what Microsoft and Google are proposing to spend this year, and how that compares to actually GDPs from many well-known countries. If you look at whether that's Romania, Chile, Finland, or Vietnam, either on par or significantly over those individual countries. This is the biggest case against it. Everyone is just saying it's .com 2.0. And I think the piece that we have to remember is that in 1999, when we had the .com, Cisco built highways for cars that didn't exist. They were laying fiber for an internet that hadn't been monetized yet. They were building the highway before anyone even owned a car. In 2026, it's dramatically different. We already have a traffic jam. A huge difference for today is what I also call the tenant factor. And it significantly adjusts the risk profile I believe, in real time. Unlike the 1990s, today we have anchor tenants that are already in the building and already paying rent. Microsoft isn't speculating on Stargate. OpenAI is an anchor tenant, already consuming compute faster than Microsoft can supply it. Google, on the other hand, their Boardfly topology, this isn't a build it and let's see if they will come prayer. Google is locking in massive commitments. They have a commitment from Anthropic for 5 gigawatts of reservation, Merck's $1 billion inference deal, and they have others already locked up. As an investor, we are choosing between 2 distinct architectures. Microsoft is betting on the model. They're betting on the smartest brain. Google is betting on the ecosystem. They're building the most efficient factory. The true risk overall, though, isn't demand, in my opinion. It's actually timing mismatch. If Microsoft spends, let's say, $100 billion today, but revenue lags by 18 months, the margins will look ugly. To an untrained eye, that timing gap looks like a bubble burst. So on Wednesday, when they report their earnings, we need to listen for the Azure AI revenue growth. If it's accelerating, then the capex is being absorbed and the thesis holds. But if it's flatlining, then the spending is going vertical while returns are stalling. This is where the bubble narrative gains dangerous traction. Because remember, in 1999, we asked people if they would use the internet. Now in 2026, We are now asking, can we build this fast enough to keep up with demand? The tenets are real. Now the margins just have to show up in the balance sheets. But let's talk about the final layer of the stack and the piece that I think is also significantly relevant to this, and it's the iron anchor. Because whether you believe or Microsoft's Stargate wins or Google's Boardfly wins, the data has to live somewhere permanent. We are currently in the middle of the 2026 storage cycle, and both Western Digital and Seagate are huge beneficiaries of this cycle with sold-out capacity and long-term agreements. Let me just show you a picture to reinforce that I saw earlier today, specifically on Western Digital. You can see Western Digital sold out all 2026 hard disk production as AI centers scramble. And if you look at the two bullet points below, Western Digital surges by 63% in year to date after selling out its entire 2026 HDD production. In addition, it generates almost 90% of revenue from hyperscaler cloud AI versus 5% from consumer. Long-term deals extend through 2028. Guys, that is a massive sign for commitment. So this is a huge player. No matter who wins, the storage players are going to win. Plus, if you want exposure or you want to stay in the fast knowledge layer, I continue to be bullish on HBM. Do you remember what I just went through around the massive HBM potential with Project Stargate? But I also remain bullish on the future prospects of high bandwidth flash. We discussed it earlier. I discussed it in my video yesterday, I believe. So we need to continue to look at Micron, SanDisk, SK Hynix. You also, I would say, if you can get exposure to Kioxia and the DRAM ETF, I would do it. They own the bridges between the thinking and the archiving within these architectures. So as we move into some of the biggest earnings of the year next week with our hyperscalers and our memory players, we have to think of it through three lenses, in my opinion. I put this picture together to help us because if you believe in the scale investor, if you believe in the Stargate monolithic, and you are playing and you are betting on the brute force cycle, there's no question NVIDIA, Micron, Vertiv are the ones you should be betting on. I would also add Oracle in there to the mix as well, because we know SoftBank and OpenAI are also part of that public-private partnership for Stargate. So I would add Oracle. If you are more aligned with the precision approach of Google, obviously you can invest in Google, but you could also add into Broadcom and Marvell. They are the architects behind building this. And finally, the iron anchor on the third one, that applies across both. We know the data has to store somewhere. So don't forget Western Digital, Seagate, SanDisk. Obviously, those are the big players with regards to cold storage, high bandwidth flash, and the potential in the future as well. But you know I'm bullish on Micron. I think Samsung and SK Hynix are excellent plays as well. So those are kind of the way I would look at it moving forward. And in closing, I would say we have two architectures that are being pushed forward, two paths, two sets of winners. If Microsoft wins, scale dominates. If Google wins, the efficiency takes over. But either way, the investors who truly understand the architectures are the ones that are positioning themselves to win today and in the future. The ones who don't, who are not paying attention to this evolution in the market, they will be the ones that are just reading the headlines as the market evolves overall. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. This is an awesome week we're going to have in front of us with massive earnings and so much content to share. But I hope you have a great Sunday, and I'll see you soon.